Hello and welcome back. In today's session we have another go at OpenBIS and look at sample management using barcodes or QR codes. So why do we need to do that? We typically have many samples, especially in our CSC or SFB, that we need to talk about. The simplest case would really be we only have one sample to one experiment ever on it. Well, of course that doesn't really happen. More realistically, we have many samples, and also samples may be split from other samples. And we also have a lot of people in our CSC. That means many projects, and that in turn means many samples. So the challenge is which sample was used for which experiment and which result. And also, since we need to preserve all the information as part of the DFG strategy, we need to be able to do so for years to come. So how can we do this? First of all, we register each sample in OpenBIS. Either we can do this in the global inventory, in the group space, or for the time being in your personal space. We can do this both for simulated samples, for stuff we put into our simulation, but also for physical specimens. So here's a demo sample that is part of the training program in OpenBIS. Each sample is then registered. That means that we have sort of a digital representation of it, if you want. And in OpenBIS, each object is identified via a QR code or a barcode. So that means for each sample we have a unique identifier, and that unique identifier in OpenBIS is associated with a code. And that we can then use to track experiments and results, because we add these samples in our experiments and results as parents. And so we can navigate the hierarchical relationships in OpenBIS and track which result was obtained with which sample, or otherwise which samples were used in which experiments. So how do we do this? If we know the sample ID, we can navigate to all experimental results. Again, here was a demo sample which I've added to a few examples. So if we know this ID, we get a list of all the children, that means of all the dependent experiments that we have done with this sample. So how do we create the QR code then? As we said before, each sample is associated with a unique code. And we can get to this by going to the sample and click on More. And then we have the option to print the barcode. If we want to change for any reason this unique identifier, we can also do so, but there's rarely a reason why we want to do that. So we can print the code, and this brings up another window on the OpenBIS web interface, and that we can choose between a traditional barcode or a QR code. In our case, we typically use QR codes, and then we have to play around a bit with the size. What worked on the printer that I use for this example is that we use 25 by 50 millimeters, that if it's printed then comes out as a rectangular QR code. That depends a bit on the settings you have for your printer, so you need to try this out. So this is the printer I've used for this example, but essentially OpenBIS creates a PDF that you can print on any printer. If you have a label printer, then of course you have a sticky label that you can just attach to your sample holder. How do we use this QR code? Option 1 is that we use a dedicated scanner. For example, if we have a central lab where many people work, and then we can use this, it's very reliable and quick. For example, the Inatec BCST50 works very well, it's relatively inexpensive, and we can put this in the central space, and then you can use the OpenBIS facility to activate the scanner and scan the QR code. Alternatively, in the new version that we have installed, OpenBIS has also a web interface that can make use of the camera, for example, of your webcam or your desktop or your laptop, or also on your phone or an iPad or other tablets. For example, if you just want to search anything that is related to your sample, you can use the global search in the front end and then click on the barcode icon. That brings up an interface where you can select the camera that is attached to your device and recognized by OpenBIS, and then you hold the sample in front of the camera, and it brings you to the page that lists where the sample is used. Or if you use a QR code scanner, you can use that of course as well. If you then model relationships, you can add parents and children, for example when editing an experiment in the ELN, or results or anything else. As you know, you can model the hierarchical relationships, and there's also this barcode icon that you can then use. There are also additional uses of QR codes, because as we said earlier, every single entity in OpenBIS has a unique ID, so it does not only refer to samples, but also, for example, to protocols or to instruments and so on. So if you want, you can print, like, say, laminated sheets that refer to the procedures and so on, and put them in the lab for convenience. So if you want then to model your relationships, you also can make use of the QR code scanner instead of searching for them manually.